I don't remember exactly when his laughter started to hurt more than his absence. Maybe it was that day when I said, "I'm going to change my life," and he rolled his eyes like someone watching a bad movie. He took a sip of beer, set the glass down on the table, and said, "You wouldn't last a month." The whole bar didn't hear it, but my soul did. And so did my pride. I laughed back, showing those teeth that tremble when you're holding back tears, and said, "It's not about lasting. It's about learning." He laughed louder. And from that moment I understood, sometimes the love we receive is just a reflection of the love we forgot to give ourselves. He was the kind of man who confused stability with control. He knew my schedule, my insecurities, my pauses. He called me realistic every time I gave up, and dramatic every time I tried again. At first, I thought that was care. Later, I learned it was fear of watching me grow. Because growth ruins the scripts people have already memorized. The day the kitchen light burned out and I stood there in the dark with flour on my hands, I realized my life looked exactly like that bulb, a filament that had already given everything. He came in, turned on the flashlight from his phone, and said, "You weren't born for this. Some people are born to win, and some are born to keep things clean." I looked down at my hands, wiped them on the towel, and took a deep breath. "Don't talk to me like that." He laughed again. His laugh was a door slamming shut. The fights came in quiet waves, no shouting, no broken glasses. Just disdain. And disdain has a smell, anyone who's felt it before recognizes it instantly. It's a bitter perfume that clings to your clothes even after the shower. You have no discipline. You get distracted. You forget everything. You only dream. I memorized every sentence like post-it notes stuck to the inside of my chest. And one day, those post-its became walls. That week, I got a message from my friend Clara. "There's a free desk at the co-working space. Come share it with me for a few days." I thought, a shared desk, sounded too small for the greatness I wanted. But it was there that everything started to change. The desk was scratched wood, the chair creaked, the coffee was terrible. And yet, I felt whole. People came and went, laptops heated up, ideas brushed against each other. It was the sound of the world whispering, "Work, fall, get up, try, fail, improve." I spent the whole morning answering emails no one asked me to, sketching a plan that didn't exist yet. When Clara saw, she laughed, "If this works, you owe me a better coffee." And I said, "If this works, I'll buy the whole place." It wasn't arrogance, it was a promise. A promise from me, to myself. He started noticing my change around Wednesday. "What's going on with you?" "Nothing," I said. But I had everything. A new notebook with colored tabs, a messy schedule, a spreadsheet that didn't scare me. I had courage, sliced in small pieces, like fruit you peel slowly so you don't waste the juice. On Friday, I announced, "I'm quitting my job." The job was his safety net, not mine. He laughed again. "You'll regret it." My stomach dropped, but I stayed still. "Maybe. But before I regret it, I'll try." He stood up, picked up his keys, and said, "You don't know what you're doing." I looked at the open door and replied, "I do. I'm opening it." I started with what I had. A tired laptop, 2 hours of good Wi-Fi, an idea that could fit into a paragraph, and a bank account that told only the truth. I went after clients I didn't have yet. Wrote simple proposals and promises I could actually keep. No miracles advertised. Miracles happen, but they don't need marketing. Clara was the first to believe in me. "Help me with this project," she said. I helped. She paid less than it was worth, and I accepted. The first month was about learning. The second, about adjusting. The third, about insisting on the right things. At home, the air was thick with silent judgment. He compared my attempts with the fixed salary I no longer had. "Do you have any idea how much you've lost?" I did. I'd lost fear. I learned to keep track of expenses on a fridge notepad. Cut luxuries that were never mine. Learned to say not yet. And to say I can. I discovered that dignity tastes like stale bread with warm butter, simple and beautiful. By the second month, I landed my first big client. Big for me, small for the market. But I held on to it like someone gripping a rope mid-crossing. I watched every detail: contracts, deadlines, expectations, delivery. I woke up early, slept late, ignored meaningless messages, and answered the important ones with care. When I delivered the project, the client said, "You heard what I didn't say." I smiled. Hearing what someone doesn't say is half the path to any victory. At home, with that same sharp smile and perfect teeth, he said, "Must have been luck." I didn't argue. Luck loves to be teased by those who work. By the 5th month, I closed 2 medium projects and turned down a small one that wanted my price but not my peace. That's when I learned, pricing isn't about numbers. It's about protecting your energy. Then came the first real nights of fear. My bank account was still frowning, and my body was begging for rest. So I made lists. And the lists made me. At the top, always, don't lie to yourself. And below, sometimes, if you need to cry, do it in the shower. I cried. And every time the water hit my face, a little piece of the person who believed that success is for others washed away. He started going out more, coming home late, inventing hobbies that smelled like escape. One night, he looked at me with that cruel curiosity and said, "So, CEO, have you bought your first luxury car yet?" "Not yet," I replied. "I'm still paying for my freedom in installments." He laughed. I smiled. Because whoever smiles last doesn't necessarily win. They just finally understand the game. By the 8th month, things began to turn around. Not by magic, by method. What I failed at 6 times, I got right on the 7th. And by the 8th, it looked like I'd always known how. I cut what didn't bring results. Expanded what needed my presence. Created a routine for creativity. Monday for structure. Tuesday for sales. Wednesday for delivery. Thursday for refinement. Friday for surprise. Saturday for reading. Sunday for loving whoever stayed. And in those days, I noticed he hadn't stayed. He was there, but not really. His body in the room, his soul in his phone. One night, he said it, like someone laying down a card in a game they already lost. "You know, some people are just born to be support." "Are you talking about me?" I asked. He shrugged. "If the shoe fits." I put the glass back in the cabinet and thought. I fit, just not the way you think. The first annual contract came in a short email. "Can we renew for 12 months? I stared at the screen the way you stare at the ocean before stepping in. "Yes." I typed yes, and went to the bathroom to cry again. When the trembling stopped, I looked in the mirror and said to myself, "I promised I'd learn. And I am learning." That's when he turned up the volume on his disdain. "Sometimes, the world can't handle the sound of your courage. I don't get why you work yourself to death," he said. "Everything was fine before." Before for who? The question hung in the air. "That night," he said again, "you weren't born to lead." And for the first time, my silence wasn't agreement. It was preparation. I didn't leave that night. I left inside. Changed passwords. Changed priorities. Changed the way I spoke to myself. I started surrounding myself with people who didn't laugh at my dreams, but lent me their watches when I was running late to chase them. Clara introduced me to Marcelo. Marcelo introduced me to Julia. Julia introduced me to Anna. They didn't save me. But with them, I never needed saving. The 10th month brought inevitable comparisons. He got a bonus at work. I got a case published. He said, "Bonuses buy things." I replied, "Cases buy futures." He laughed, of course. And I learned not everything needs translation. By the 11th month came the invitations that scare you. To speak, to share, to be seen. I trembled, but I went. I stood on stage with shaky hands and a steady voice, and told my story without filters, ugly numbers, beautiful truths. I failed a lot, I said, but I failed while trying. At the end, a girl hugged me and whispered, "Thank you for not pretending to be perfect." I went home with a paper bouquet and a peaceful heart. That same night, he crossed the final line. "You made this life up," he said. "The first time you fall, you'll come running back." What he didn't know was, I had already fallen 10 times. And I never ran back. I built a new place to fall. On the 12th day of the 12th month, and I'll never forget it. I signed the contract that would change my next year. The client shook my hand and said, "You understood my pain before selling your solution." I left the building with the wind on my face. Called Clara. And we laughed. The kind of laughter that only comes when you realize the universe works in strange hours. But it works. When I got home, he was there with friends, laughing loud. "So, entrepreneur?" one joked. He raised his glass. "Tomorrow she'll quit and go back to the old job." They toasted. I heard it from the hallway, washed my face, and thought, I won't prove anything to anyone. I'll live. The next week, I moved out. A small place, bright, with sunlight in the morning and silence at night. He came by to pick up a few things, looked around, and said, "You think you're too big now?" "I think I'm mine," I replied. He left the keys on the counter and walked away without looking back. I breathed like someone reaching the top of the stairs, arms full of grocery bags, tired, but proud for making it up. The first quarter of the new year was slow, steady expansion. I hired one person, then another, learned from those who knew more, made new mistakes, fixed them better, paid old debts, bought a good coffee machine, returned books I'd borrowed, donated clothes that didn't fit, not my body, but my life. One day, Clara walked into the new office, spun in the middle of the room, and said, "Remember when you promised me the whole space?" I smiled. "Sit down. It's yours too. And it's here I want to breathe with you, whoever's listening now. If you've ever heard someone laugh at your dream, and still kept going, tell me where you're listening from. I love imagining the places this story reaches. And if this journey is giving you strength somehow, subscribe. It tells me you're here, and helps me keep telling stories that remind us what truly matters. Success didn't come suddenly. It arrived in small steps, disguised as routine. I stopped counting days by frustration, and started counting them by progress. What used to be fear turned into method. What used to be doubt turned into plan. And before I knew it, I didn't need to prove anything to him anymore. Only to myself. It was on an ordinary morning that everything changed again. I had just finished a project when an email arrived. "We'd like to feature your story at the city's Women Entrepreneurs event." I thought it was a mistake. Read it 3 times. It wasn't. I cried. Not for recognition, but because for the first time, someone saw me for what I was, not for what I lacked. At the event, I stepped on stage trembling, sweaty hands, heart in my throat. And as I spoke, I saw admiration instead of pity. At the end, someone asked, "What motivated you?" I took a deep breath and said, "The laughter of those who doubted me." In the crowd, I saw someone I didn't expect, him, standing at the back. That same look, unsure whether to applaud or hide. The world suddenly felt too small when destiny decided to close a circle. After the event, he came up to me. "Congratulations," he said stiffly. "You really made it." "I'm still making it," I replied. He forced a smile. "You must be earning well, huh? Better than before." He nodded, but his eyes betrayed that familiar discomfort. The kind that comes when pride doesn't know whether to feel shame or envy. In the following days, he started sending messages. "Saw your name in the magazine. Heard you hired a new team. I'm happy for you." But between the lines, I could still read the noise. Then came the message I didn't expect. "Can we talk? I have a business proposal." I hesitated, but agreed. We met at a cafe, the same one where, a year ago, he'd said I wouldn't last a month. Now he arrived first. Well-dressed. Polished. A little different. He smiled and began. "I started a new company. We need someone with your vision, someone who understands people, processes, someone like you." The irony was almost poetic. "Someone like me?" I asked. "Yes. You have a natural talent for this." "Funny," I said. "I remember you saying the opposite." He gave a small, awkward laugh. "People change." "Not all of them." The silence that followed was heavy enough to hear the seconds pass. "So?" he insisted. "So, thank you. But I only take on projects that don't remind me of those who doubted me." He smiled faintly, that same bitter smile. "You always knew how to give beautiful answers. And you always underestimated their cost." I stood up, paid for my coffee, and left. Not out of anger, out of self-respect. In the following months, growth became natural. Awards came, interviews, partnerships. But what moved me most was walking into my company's new headquarters. Wide rooms, bright walls, living plants. A space that breathed everything I had fought to become. Light, grounded, free. On that first day, I looked around and thought, if his laughter had stopped me, I'd never be here. And just when it felt like everything was finally complete, life brought me one last twist. I was reviewing a proposal when the receptionist entered. "There's a new hire who wants to see you. Says he's an old acquaintance." "Send him in," I said without looking up. I heard footsteps. When I looked, it was him. The same man who once said I'd never be anyone. The same one who laughed, doubted, and walked away. Now standing there, wearing an employee badge. Hired by one of my company's branches. "I can't believe it," he said nervously. "Yeah," I replied. "Life turns, doesn't it?" He tried to joke. "So, you're my boss now?" "No," I said calmly. "I'm just someone who learned the value of not giving up." In the days that followed, I saw him in the hallway. Polite. Respectful. Maybe even remorseful. But time had already done what forgiveness was still rehearsing. And there, watching him hand in reports for my approval, I finally understood. Revenge isn't about humiliation. It's about evolution. It's turning pain into progress. Time passed. And success, once a fight, became a rhythm. But a beautiful one. The kind of rhythm you build with purpose. I started waking up early again. Walking along the balcony of my new house. The one that used to be just a dream. Then a sketch. And now, solid ground. The city glimmered below. And I thought of how many times I almost gave up. How many times I cried in the shower. Believing failure was the opposite of success. When in truth, it was the path to it. One evening, I checked my messages and found one that made me stop. A girl had written, "I heard your story and decided to try again. Thank you." And in that moment, I finally understood what victory really means. Victory isn't when those who doubted you come back to apologize. It's when someone who's never met you finds strength in your story. It's when your comeback lights the spark in someone else's darkness. I closed my laptop, took a deep breath, and let the wind mess up my hair. The same wind that once carried my tears, now carrying gratitude. If you made it this far, thank you. Thank you for listening, for feeling, for believing that real stories can change ordinary days. Now tell me, where in the world are you listening from? Which part of this story reminded you of your own journey? I love imagining where these words find you. In kitchens, on buses, in quiet midnights, or in the middle of a new beginning. And if this story touched you, subscribe, so I know you're here with me. And we can keep walking together until the next one. Because in the end, success isn't a destination. It's the reflection of those who stayed. Stayed when no one believed. Stayed when the world doubted. Stayed until the dream found its address. And when people ask me, "Don't you feel angry at him?" I smile. No. He was the bridge. I was the one who crossed. Today, when I walk past the front of my company and see the sign with my name, I think of everything they once said I couldn't be. And I smile. Because sometimes, the best response is living so well. That silence speaks for you. And this was another story that reminds me, we don't need to prove our worth. We just need to live it. See you in the next video. Until then, take care of yourself and of the truths that made you stay.